All right, so we've got our tools in place. So let's now set up our project directory. And just a note before we get going, we are going to be using a lightweight local web server for this course called HTTP server. And we're going to get that installed through npm, which we'll see in just a little bit. And if you are using something like MAMP if you are on a Mac as your local web server, or maybe WAMP if you're on Windows, feel free to keep using those, but just know that you'll have to adapt your own coursework to suit your needs. All right, so with that said, let's start by creating a new folder for our project directory. And if you're going to be following along with me using HTTP server and doing everything exactly like I'm doing, then we're going to put the project directory on the desktop. Now, to actually create the directory and all of the files we need, I'm going to use the command line. And if you're used to using the command line, this will be normal for you. But if you aren't experienced with the command line yet, it's going to be a bit of a crash course. But we'll take it one step at a time, and I'll try to explain all the commands I'm doing as I go. And just a note for Windows users, the commands that I enter here won't map directly to the command prompt in Windows. But if you like, you can use something like Cygwin to enter Linux-like commands in your Windows environment. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to start by changing directories to the desktop, and we do that with the cd command. So change directory to desktop. So here we are at the desktop. And to make a new directory, we can use mkdir for make directory. And let's call this ngClassifieds. So that directory is now there, and I can tell if I use ls for list. We can see the file shows up there, or we can even just look at the desktop, and we see that we've got our ngClassifieds folder right there. So that's the folder, but we want to get some structure within the folder in place. So first, let's change into it. So we'll do cd, once again, change directory into ngClassifieds. And the reason that I didn't have to put the tilde and the slash there before it is because we were already on the desktop, and the ngClassifieds folder was immediately accessible to us. Okay, so we'll want some folders within here. The first one is going to be a scripts folder. So we do mkdir for make directory, and we call it scripts. And then let's do another one for our CSS. And if I take a look at what folders I've got, you can see there I've got my CSS and my scripts directories. And finally, we're going to want to start out with an index.html file. And the way that we create new files is with the touch command. So we do touch index.html. If I look in there once more, you see that I've got all three of those items. All right, so the structure set up, I'm going to clear my screen. And the next thing that we're going to want to do is install some dependencies from npm. npm, again, is the package manager that comes with Node. And with it, we're able to access various libraries like Angular and some of the other supporting libraries that we'll be using in our project as well. Before we do that, though, we'll actually need to initialize our ngClassifieds folder as a module itself so that everything installs correctly. So we can do that with npm init. And here we'll be walked through how to set up our initialization. So the first thing we'll need to do is give it a name. And it's got ngClassifieds in parentheses here, and that's kind of the default value that it would let you choose. But the thing is, we're not allowed to have capital letters in our npm module names anymore. So instead, let's just call it ng-classifieds. And then the rest of this, we can kind of just keep the defaults. So if you press enter for each one of these, you can give it a description if you like, but if you don't want to, you can just keep the default. The entry point here, we'll just keep the default as well. We won't actually have an index.js file because this won't be a server-side app, but we'll just keep the default in there for npm's purposes. We can also just leave the test command blank. And if you've got a Git repository that you're working with from GitHub or Bitbucket, you can put it there. And then keywords that you would like as well. So at the end, it'll ask you if that's okay, and you can say yes. And now our folder is initialized as an npm module. And so now we can install the packages we need. All right, so let's see how this works. We'll do npm install Angular. And so that'll take a little bit of time to run, but once it's done, you see that we've now got Angular in our node modules/Angular directory. And we can take a look at that if we again list out the files. You see we've got a new directory there that was automatically created. It's called node modules. And if we change directories into node modules, and then list out the files there, you see we've got a new Angular directory. And that's where all of the files from Angular are going to live. So we need a couple more packages, and let's install those now. The first thing I'll do is change directories back up one level because I went into the node modules folder. But to install everything, I actually want to be in the root directory for the project, which is ng classifieds. So the other items we need are Angular material, which is material design adapted specifically for Angular, and also material design icons, which is a library of icons that are going to be nice to use in our application. And we can get them both at the same time if we just put a space between their names. So we'll do npm install Angular material and then mdi after the space. So that's run, and if we take a look now into our node modules directory once again, we'll see that we've got a bunch of other stuff that comes along with Angular material. And so Angular material brings with it some pure dependencies which it needs to operate. So we've got all of our items in there. The last thing that we're going to want to do now is install our HTTP server. And this installation is going to look a little bit different because we need to globally install it. So to do that, let's change directories back up, although it doesn't really matter where we are for this one. And we'll do npm install HTTP server, and then we'll pass the G flag, which means install it globally. So here's a good example of where an installation fails because we don't have the proper permissions. And so there's a permissions issue somewhere here within a directory, and I won't take the time right now to actually go and fix it at the source, but rather I'll show you how you can use the sudo command to get around this. And if we were to, instead of just running the command like such, if we were to put sudo before npm, then we would be running it as the root user and things would pass. So we could go all the way to the top and put sudo in before that, but another cool trick is if we were to rather go sudo and then put 2 exclamation points, then it's going to run the last command as the root user. So once our password, and there we go, everything has installed. All right, so that is a crash course in how to create directories, files, and do installation on the command line. So that's about it for now. In the next video, we are going to get a little Hello World app going just to get started.